Okay, so this is this class schedule, okay, and then and we'll also update the homepage at light.org to make sure you can always go there, and there'll be a link on the homepage, and you can go click that. Now, then I want to mention the handouts. Okay, there were 4 different handouts. Okay.
Did you do this?
Show schedule.
Oh, okay. Oh.
So there was a problem with last week's handout, which Renee sent me an email and said, Paul, you got quadruplicities and triplicities mixed up. And I thought, well, I never. And then I went and looked at the chart, and I thought Renee, you were talking about something that I said, and and so then I saw the chart, and yeah, they're definitely mixed up on the chart. So thank you, Renee, for that. But they're corrected in this group of handouts. So you don't need handouts from the first week. All you need is the stuff from this week. And what you have there, first of all, is you've got the 7 steps in judging, which is actually titled "Judging the Horoscope: Keywords and Phrases." I guess I should have changed the name of that.
Okay.
And you can download these from churchofthelight.tv. And if you don't have them with you tonight, if any of these, if you don't have, there's some you don't have, or all of them, doesn't make any difference. They'll be up on the screen, and you can get them later. Okay, then, now, what that first, we're going to go through that first handout. It's the first 6 steps in judging, okay? And then there were 2 fill-in-the-blank Word documents. Now, if you don't have Word, you're not going to be able to use those, and it's okay. Don't worry about it. And then the 4th one that I added tonight is the beginning of the is part 1 of the detailed chart analysis. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to tonight. We're going to use a fill-in-the-blanks form, and we're going to look at.
I like it bigger and that's smaller.
We're going to look at Donald Trump's chart and maybe Barack Obama. Maybe
you have to make sure you see how the arrow. You have to make sure it has that. It looks like
I'm going to mute everybody here. So everybody's muted now, so we won't hear anybody talking. But, raise your hand. Okay.
May I make a comment?
Yeah.
On that chart, last week there was some discussion about how reliable the data was for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And we actually verified that it is AA data for the chart that you have.
For the chart that I had. And let's see, who brought it up that Christopher had a different chart? Is that you, Michelle? Yeah. Apparently the one we have here is the right one.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's in Astro Data Bank. It's rated double. It's got the broad rating, AA rating.
Yeah.
Okay. And while I'm mentioning this, everybody, that there's a Lois Rodden, who used to be a member of our organization, and who's since passed on, and she was a great astrologer, real good horary astrologer. She developed a system called a rating system, and you can go on and find out about it online. But a AA chart is a chart that has a valid birth certificate timing, and you can, and it goes on down to D, or I don't remember how far it goes down, but having the valid time is a good thing. So you can also go find charts on Astro Data Bank, or go to astro.com to get to Astro Data Bank, and they have a lot of charts too, and they're rated as they all have a Rodden rating, so you know how good they are.
Well, and Astro Dinks is also good because
Astro.com, that's their website.
Okay.
Either one of them.
Okay,
Yeah,
and they also have links to biographies and all kinds of resources.
That's right. Astro Dinks, as Vicky's pointing out, is a wonderful resource, and I think their web address is astro.com. All right. Okay. Okay, so moving on here. What we're going to do, I'm going to flip to this chart, which is just a review of the 7 steps in judging. We start out, the first 6 steps are, certainly the first 4 steps are pretty general. Steps 5 and 6, you start talking about chief rulers of a house or department of life. And step 6, you note the prominence of each planet, decadents occupied by some moon ascendant. And then in 7, we start going through the step 7 is the detailed analysis. Right? And hopefully we'll get to that, some of that today. And I want to hold up this book. This is the current version, if you can see it in the camera, of, I'll bring it up close. I don't have a camera, so I don't know. Natal Astrology. This is our textbook. Of course, we reference stuff from Course 2, Astrological Signatures, and Course 8, Hermetic Astrology. But the detailed analysis is in this book, Natal Astrology, Course 1. And this is the new format that all books are going to be in. Someday. Okay. So, and you may have it in a different format. So,
but what you reference on those handouts is from the 21 courses PDF file, right? Someone has to have the ebook, the 21 courses.
Yes, those page numbers are for the ebooks, either the 21 courses ebook or the individual ebooks. So, okay, I'm going to bring up our fill in the blanks chart for Donald Trump. Okay, now we're going to go through these steps right now, the first 6 steps with Donald Trump. And we're going to use this chart here. Now, I also included an aspect grid here with this, which you may or may not use. And some of you, remember that some of this may be a little ahead of you of where you are, but you'll be able to, you'll get the idea, okay? So I'm just going to fill in a few aspects here. The first thing I'm going to do, just for fun, just for fun. I see Moon is at 21 Sag, and Mars is at 26 Leo. So we know that Sag and Leo are both fire signs. So that means these 2 planets are
trying one another.
Good. So let's go down. So we're going to go down here and we're going to find the Moon. Here's the Moon row, and we're going to go over to Mars. And we're going to click in here, and we're going to go put that's a trine. Okay. Then we're going to move on here. Okay. And it puts them in red. Okay. Then let's pick some more. Well, how about Venus and Saturn? Venus and Saturn are right next to each other. They're like 2 degrees apart, so we know for sure they're a conjunction. So I'm going to go Venus, Saturn. I'm going to click this. We're going to put that. It's a conjunction. Okay. So anyway, that's how you go fill out. And the reason that I encourage everybody to memorize the triplicities and the quadruplicities last week is because you have to know those codes in order to see aspects of the chart. Maybe we should see if we can take one more example. Is this something easy? Well, okay, here's the Sun and Mars. Well, Sun and Mars here. Sun is in at 22 Gemini, and and then right here is Mars at 26 Leo. Well, Leo and Gemini, air sign, fire sign. So they're going to be sextile. That's right. Because they're compatible with mental harmonious aspect, and that's how you remember it. So we go down to the Sun here and Mars right here, Sun and Mars. We're going to select that, and we're going to go. That's a sextile. Okay, so that's enough of that. Now, and that's really, this is really a later part of the, the more detailed delineation, but I wanted to I wanted to show you how to do this. Now, so what we're going to do here is we're going to fill in this planetary distribution grid. And but it's going to really help if we can see his chart here. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to kind of move this over here. See if we can't get this just like that. Okay, so now here's what we're going to do. We're going to count planets in the sign. So we're going to, the movable signs are
Cancer,
Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. So we're going to count how many planets are in. Let's do this a little better here. In movable signs. Well, he's got 1, 2, 3 in Cancer. Let's make that a little too small. 1, 2, 3 in Cancer.
and 2
2 in Libra. That's 5. And that looks like the MC here and the ascendant. So we got 5 planets in movable signs. Bingo. Okay, now let's do the fixed signs. So the fixed signs are Taurus, Leo,
Scorpio, and Aquarius.
Aquarius.
So it
So
looks like two planets.
so we got well, look up here, the MCs is you count the MC and the ascendant when you're doing this. We got the MC, we got the ascendant and Mars and Leo, fixed sign, and the MC, that's 3 so far. And these planets are not, so you've got 3 and a fixed sign. 3.
No, 4.
Oh,
2
4.
planets, the MC and ascendant.
Oh, thank you. That's why you're here. Okay, then mutable. Well, there's 10 planets and there's the MC and the ascendant. So there must be 3 immutable signs, and there are 3, because these numbers right here got to add up to 12. 2 in Gemini, Moon's in Sagittarius, 3 immutable. Okay, now we're going to go down here and we'll do fire. How many planets in fire signs? Well, it's got the ascendant and Mars, that's 2, and the Pluto is in Leo, that's 3, and the Moon and Sag, that's 4. So it's got 4 planets in fire signs. And then we're going to do Earth. So we've got MC right here, up at the top. You always count MC and ascendant. We've got 1.
That's it.
And that's it. And then we've got air. We've got 2 in Gemini. We've got 2 in Libra. That's 4. So we've got 4 in air. And then that leaves 3 in water, right? And there they are. Mercury, Saturn, Venus, all up there close to each other in water. 3. So now we're going to do the societies. Personal. The personal houses are the first, the second. I'm sorry. The personal houses are the 12th, the first, the second, and the third. These are about personal things. Okay, and in the 12th, the 12th is about secret things, but because it's above the ascendant, people do find out about it. So they find out about your 12th house secrets, but they usually don't find out about your 4th house secrets, and they're both psychic houses. Okay, so we got 2 planets in the 12th house and 2 in the second house of money. So that's 4 planets in personal houses. Now the companionship houses are 4, 5, 6, and 7. 4 being the home, domestic environment. 5 is
Children.
love affairs, children, entertainment. The 6th is a companionship house because it has to do with the people you work with and any subordinates and servants and stuff like that. And of course, 7th is marriage and partnership. So 1 planet in personal and companionship. So then public houses, those are the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. And you can see that Mr. Trump has 5 planets in public houses. and not very many planets. Companionship has it. So we're already starting to figure him out. Okay, now the life is first, is first, fifth, and
And
ninth.
ninth.
And
How about 0?
he's got a big 0 in there. And wealth is the second, 8th,
6,
second, 6th,
and 10.
and 10th.
So 4.
So you've got 4 planets in wealth. And then association, Trinity, is 3,
7.
3, 7, and 11.
11.
So he's got 3 planets in the house of France. So he gets 3 in association. And then in the psychic houses, he must have
2. No, we missed something here.
7. Well, he should have 3 in the psychic. Psychic houses are 4th, 8th, and
Oh, I'm
12th.
sorry, yeah. I missed
So he's got 3 planets.
Yeah.
One, the moon in the 4th, 2 on Mars in the 12th. He's got 3 planets in psychic houses. Okay, and how many planets does he have above the ascendant? Ascendant, descendant. This line right, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he's got 7 above, and then he's got how many planets each?
3.
All but 1. The moon is the only planet that's not. He's got 9.
9 each, 10.
9 east. And this is the degree of emanation, and that has to do with, if we look at his sun, Gemini is the first degree of emanation, and he's got 3 planets in Cancer, that's first degree of emanation. But his moon's in the 3rd degree. So I put him primarily, the fact that he has the moon, I'd say in that 3rd degree of emanation, and we'll talk about what this means. I'm going to say he's primarily first degree emanation person. Okay.
You
So
missed, but you didn't fill out angular, succeeding, and
oh, I sure did. Thank you. Okay, how many planets in angular houses? 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th.
3.
Got 3 planets. And then succeeding houses,
5.
he's got 5. 2 in the 2nd. So it's 2, 5, 8, and 11. So he's got 3 in the 11th, 2, 5. Right. Good count. And then that leaves, of course, 2 in Decadent houses, which are the 2 in the 12th house right here.
Can you count Mars because it's right on the ascendant?
The accountant
Can you count it as being in first?
in the 1st? No, I don't count it as being in the 1st, but what did you say?
2.
It's in the 12th, but it is empowered by being right on the...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a big deal.
Right.
Yeah. Mars is
So
the ruler of his personality. For sure.
so there, it's her question. It's affecting the 1st house.
Oh, yeah.
You still can't call it.
Well, it's in the 12th, and, we don't know the guy well enough to know, he'd have to tell us if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's a double-A chart.
You just have to watch his show.
Yeah, you have to watch his show.
I mean, he's very out there. He's not a hidden Mars. It's on his horizon.
Right. Well,
Okay, let's fill this thing out here. Okay, so now step 1 is power. So this is the fill in the thing. So power, we said that he had 5 in succeeding houses and 3 in angles. Well, I would call that.
No way.
Oh yeah, you're right. That
and an iffy Mars.
yeah,
I
and
said
this
he's
is,
powerful.
you're giving the Mars there. I'd say it's pretty close to being a powerful chart. Now we could, everybody says, well, what about Astrodites? Well, you can go look at Astrodites, but how are you going to compare them? You got to compare them with other people, so you'll have to build up a database. We've never done that. Okay, now quadruplicity. We're going to choose an item here. Is he, and this has to do with his, this part of his adaptability. Is he, he's got 5 immovable, 4 in fixed, and 3 immutable. I'd say he's a mix.
Yeah,
His Gemini is in an angular house, so that empowers his adaptability, doesn't it? Even though the angular house is ruled by Taurus at the top of his
he's
chart.
probably, business-wise, maybe he's,
We've got their mics.
we've got what? Oh, we haven't been paying attention
You're
to
not paying
him.
attention here.
Ask if there are any questions.
What is this? Make them all go down. I
Michael
guess
Salter has his hand up.
Okay, Michael, you have a question?
Hi. Yeah, I was just going to say, in Hermetic, in Hermetic astrology, the houses are considered as abrupt partitions. So Mars would be very much a 12th house planet, not a first house planet. Even though it's so close to the ascendant, it will have an influence, obviously, on the personality because of its closeness to the ascendant, but it will be regarded as a 12th house planet, even so, because in Hermetic astrology, planets are, the houses are considered as abrupt partitions, aren't they?
Okay. We have the result.
Don't remember.
Yeah. Okay. That's exactly right, Michael. We consider that those, that you've got a membrane there that you pass into, the things relating, and it's also built around the fact that what we say is that this, in Hermetic astrology, we teach that the birth chart is a map of the unconscious mind. So it's a map. So in the unconscious mind, these departments of life are built up because the unconscious mind naturally associates things which are similar together. Okay? So now, and that's how it works.
So how do you apply that point
Raise
to,
your hand.
how do you apply that point that you just said to what Michael Salter was saying?
Well, the things relating to home, the home environment, and where you live and what you live in, and real estate and all those things are similar enough that they don't get put over here in the house of entertainment and children. Now there may be a relationship. So what I was saying is that they get associated with things of a like nature. And what some people believe is if it's close to the cusp, it's the same thing as when you're in a sign. We teach that if a planet is at 29,
59.
59 is still in that sign, that there's,
Yeah, which his rising sign is. Look at that, 2958.
yeah, that's really weird. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that. Okay, let's go. So we're going to say he's really balanced when it comes to his adaptability, degree of versatility, success in accommodating change. He's pretty well balanced. And then planets east and west. Well, he's clearly, he's an east. He's the person that molds environment and circumstances, as opposed to being, adapting to them. So he's a molder. And then now let's look at temperament. Now, temperament is the characteristic or habitual attitude, mood, and behavioral responses. And in general, we're going to look at triplicity. And the triplicity, he's fire and air with a little bit of water. So what I'm going to say is I could say he is the inspirational type. because he's mostly fire and air. Okay.
Right.
Inspirational, aspirational. I could type something in here.
I do that. Yeah, do that.
I could just say he's fire and air. And then I'd have to go to fire and air. Okay.
No, well, it doesn't have an E on it.
Oh, it does? Doesn't it in the UK? No, not in the UK?
Buenos Aires.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And then degree of emanation. Well, I picked first, but that Sag moon, you have to Sag moon. And the degree of emanation, the reason I'm putting it under temperament is because the degree of, and I'll just drop this, the degree of emanation identifies the degree to which a person externalizes their inner nature. Do they act from their own feelings? Do they act from a combination, their own feelings modified by what others think is appropriate or advised? Or are they more reserved? Third degree, where their actions stem primarily from actions which society or the culture that they're in deem appropriate.
Why don't you ask somebody from the
Okay,
class
so-
what degree of emanation?
Yeah. Does anybody out there in the class have a suggestion about that? Now, let me say this real quick. Degree of emanation is the first. It goes Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. That's first degree of. And then second degree is Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio. And then Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. So there's 3 sets, and it just goes around the zodiac that way. So, anybody got a better idea about what he is as far as degree of emanation?
I think he's a first degree emanation. I think he does pretty well what he acts from his own feelings, ideas, and inward yearnings.
Right. I don't think he cares that much what other people think. Although, the Sagittarius moon is.
But that might be more related to his home. The home more, in his home he may be more like that.
Right.
But I think that it could be, but I doubt it. I mean, Sag wants to get along, so.
Okay, so let's go. Okay, so that's his. So he's a person who, he is. We said he's fire and air, so he's got the enthusiasm, optimism, self-reliance, and command of others of a fire person, along with being, a socially inclined and intellectual type person. And I'm sure he considers himself such. And it turns out he's actually a pretty smart guy. And he tends to. He
puts his foot in his mouth, though.
He does put his foot in his mouth.
But Sag, he's a full moon baby. That Sag moon is opposite his sun.
Yeah, that's right.
And Uranus. So, putting his foot in his mouth and being blunt and not thinking ahead of,
Okay. Okay. Well, we've got to keep an eye on Laura.
Yeah.
Laura and Michelle are panel members. They've been elevated to panel members, but that doesn't mean they get to talk all the time.
Right.
So, okay, now let's look at the society. How is he personal, companionship, public? Well, it's all him, or it's about him or his reputation, right? Yeah, I mean, his life revolves around. He's got 5 planets in public housing, so he's in that world, and then he's got some in also in personal, but I'd say mostly he's mostly in public. And you can just type in these things. You can type whatever you want in here in these things. And then Trinities, we said he was what? Well, and associated. So he's kind of a mix. He's not, he's kind of a mix of things. So we just put he's Wouldn't you say?
Well, he was void in one area. What was it?
He's void
In life.
yeah. In the life house. So.
There's a comment here from Renee.
Okay.
She says, I think it's not on the webinar. She says, with the Sun and Mercury in first degree emanation, liberty.
Liberty is the key word for first degree.
Right. We'll save the things. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to look at houses with planets. Okay. And we're going to look at the Department of Life. We're going to figure out what's the chief ruler of each house. So that's the fifth and sixth step. We're going to get a little more detail. So now we're going to worry about personality and stuff like that in a little bit here, because it's part of the detailed analysis. Now we're just going to go through. And by the way, if you're analyzing, everybody out there, if you're doing somebody's chart and you're writing it down, you would be writing all this stuff down. It'd be the preliminary, introductory part to a chart before you got into the detail part of it. Okay, so let's look. No planets in the first house, but
If you can't avoid that Mars conjunction.
but the Sun is a co-ruler of the first house because Leo's on the cusp. So it turns out that the 10th house, the ruler of the first house is in the 10th house. So that means that it has some authority over his personality. His public activities have authority over his personality, and probably affect his temperament and that sort of thing too. The second house, he's got 2 planets in the second house. Normally you pick the one that is the closest to the cusp. Well, that would be Neptune. But he's also got Jupiter in there. But if we select Neptune, we're going to go down here and say Neptune. So his second house is subject to illusion. The subtle visionary factors, elusive and mystical, imagination leaves mental pictures surrounded reality. Well, he is, and this is very true of him. He's been in a lot. He's come up with a lot of schemes for making money.
Scheme and promotion.
Scheming and promotion, exactly. He's done that a lot, and at least 2 times he's gotten in financial trouble doing it. But because he's got Jupiter in the second house, he gets out of trouble. So, okay, let's look at the third house. Well, there's no planet in the third. Venus rules it. Third house has to do with personal studies, siblings, neighbors, that sort of thing. We don't know about that, anything about him, but we know that friends, Venus is the ruler of the cusp, so friends, hopes, and wishes have some authority over matters of the third house.
Keep going down. There you go.
Okay. So then we'll go to the fourth house. Got the moon in the fourth. So the moon is ruler of the fourth house. So any planet, any house that's got the moon in it is subject to fluctuation is the key word. The moon is very impressionable and receptive and changeable. Things are always in gestation in that house. And that is his home and his environment. Now, the moon is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius, we'll look at this a little later. Sagittarius is a fire sign. The key word is IC. And they're very, Sagittarians are great when it comes to philosophy and good advice. So his moon expresses through that fire sign. Okay, well, let's go on. There's no planets, and I'm just going to skip some of this stuff. I'm going to go down here and look at just the houses that have planets. So the 10th house, he's a public person. He's got his Sun and Uranus conjunct in Gemini in the 10th house. So we'll just say, okay, we'll just put the Sun in here because it's going to be the dominant influence. And that is with the Sun there, any house that the Sun is in is going to be pursued. It's big one. That's the key word. And things in that house impact one's self-esteem and authority and relations with men, whether you're male or female. So it's a strongly vitalized house. Of course, we know he's a very public person. And then his question.
Yeah. Now, what you selected the Sun over Uranus because it's a luminary?
No, because it's the Sun, yes. Normally, you'd have...
I mean, they're both pretty far away from
well, the rule is, if you look in your handout will tell you the rule is, or the second handout that we're going to get to in a little bit, generally, the closer a planet is to the cusp, the closest one to the cusp is generally the ruler of the house. And then the other planets are co-rulers, including the planets that rules the sign on the house cusp. Okay, I just picked the Sun because it's the Sun, and they're close conjunct. Otherwise you'd say Uranus. And Uranus, I mean, this is, we're just looking general. I mean, obviously, when you're going to write up the chart analysis for Trump, you're going to talk about his Sun conjunct Uranus is a significant part of his aspect. So he's a very, I wouldn't say
innovative.
He's very innovative.
Right, absolutely.
And yeah, he's great new ideas, and he's disruptive, and he's very unique. He's not
right.
He's idiosyncratic, but he's he's not eccentric. But
he's not.
Well, some of the things are. The thing about Obama, I don't know if you guys remember this, but during the election in 2000, and by the way, we got to keep this apolitical because that's what we do here. But we can talk about this because everybody already knows it. He had a big thing about whether Obama had a real birth chart, and he was on CNN a lot on.
He was very vocal about it.
He was very vocal about it, and it was kind of ridiculous. Let me see if anybody's, and it made him look kind of. He was on. Who's the person on CNN that has the show at night that interviews people?
The Brit.
Yeah.
Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan, great show. He interviewed Trump a number of times, and they went back and forth about this birth chart thing. And Trump just wouldn't give up on it.
I don't think he ever had.
Oh, even though it's published, I'm pretty sure it's all published now. So I don't think, Michael, do you have your hand up? I'm going to turn it off. Well, it doesn't do any good. It just comes back on. Fred Michael Faircloth. I'm turning yours off too. Okay, so nobody's got their hand up. Okay. Just check. And then finally, the 11th house, friends, hopes, and wishes. Now, what's similar about friends, hopes, and wishes? Well, because the reason they're in that house, presumably, is because there's a connection there. Anybody got an idea about why that is?
Connection between
friends, hopes, and wishes.
the 11th house. the Venus thing?
Well, it's there. You know, why does the 11th house rule friends, hopes, and wishes?
Oh, well, it's Aquarius's natal home.
Yeah, right. That's correct. Well, basically, the hopes and wishes are sort of like mental friends that you carry around with you. I think that's the idea.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. So,
Which one was Plankton sort of?
what? Now, we're going to say Mercury is the chief ruler of the 11th house because it's the one closest to the cusp, and it's an important planet, and so that pretty much makes it.
The fact that those are all three planets are in the 11th are intersected, what's their significance to that?
Well, yeah, but I never paid attention to it. Yeah. There is, yes, well, different astrological authors have different theories about that. What Zane wrote is that they're latent, they represent latent qualities that come out as the person matures and there's enough environmental pressure to make them come out. Okay? Now, it'd be very interesting to know if we could get inside his brain and know how he feels about friends. But I think he probably thinks about friends a lot. And friends are an important part of his life. And he talks a lot about them. And it's the 11th house is the subject of lots of mental activity surrounding friends and mental friends, hopes and wishes. Okay, so then finally we've got, now here's the thing, normally we'd say Pluto, because it's closer to the cusp, we'd say Pluto. Now when it comes to his personality, Mars is going to have a huge effect on his personality. We know that. And Mars is in harmony in Leo, so that's good. So, oops, I did the wrong thing. You know, everybody, I know everybody doesn't have a word. This whole thing that we're doing here is an experiment because we're going to be doing, I'm going to put Pluto down here. So the 12th house is subject to coercion. There's interplane influence, and the 12th house is very much about interplane stuff. There's a facility for cooperation, contacting groups of people. Pluto rules the influence of groups of people and being part of a particular group, and the natural social pressure that comes along with being in a particular group, and sometimes it can lead to coercion. And, so he's got, and having Mars in that house, he's got some interesting things going on there. So okay, so now we sort of finished doing a general sort of analysis, but the kind of thing that now we're pretty acquainted with his chart. So the whole idea here is that instead of jumping into his chart and immediately saying, well, he's got moon opposition, sun and Uranus up here, so that means blah blah blah. We're sort of going in a orderly step-by-step thing. That's the idea. And I wasn't using that here, what you said as an example, but it's a good example because it's an obvious thing. So one thing we want to look at is we want to note the prominence of planets in any powerful conjunction. Well, what makes a planet prominent is, first of all, being in an angle. So we know, and making powerful aspects. So this is the biggest thing in his chart. Literally, this moon is opposition to sun. He's a full moon. He's a full moon child, like Laura said, and opposition Uranus. So there's this separation between these two areas in his life, his domestic life and his public life. And it's a constant thing. And those are very dominant that the Sun and Uranus and Moon are going to be very prominent planets in his chart. I would say that because Mars is so close conjunct his ascendant, it's almost like being in an angle in the first house. So it's a very important thing. Now, dominant planet, let's see if we can guess. The dominant planet is the most powerful planet in the chart. And, you know, if we had gone up here and we had filled out this whole aspect grid, then we could sort of look at it, and we could look at what the most powerful asset. We would, these conjunctions, this Venus-Saturn conjunction, that's a very prominent aspect of his character in the 11th house. The Sun-Uranus conjunction, and their opposition to the Moon, and the Mars, and the fact that he's got 2 planets in the 2nd house. I mean, those are the things that if you're writing an analysis of his chart, you're going to concentrate on. But we're still going to go step by step. Now, picking the dominant planet, well, I would guess it's one, and I think I remember because I'm pretty sure I looked, but I'm going to act like I did cheat. I would say the Moon, see, the Moon is good trying to this Mars in the ascendant. It's opposition to the Sun. And this is a good, well, I'm getting too detailed.
It's sextile Jupiter, too. Not real tight, but...
Right, but that's a good sextile, that's right.
And that strengthens it.
Right. The Sun's got this sextile to Mars, and the Sun also has this trine down here to Jupiter. And the Moon circles Jupiter. See, so and I'm just going to say this even though we're kind of jumping in the middle in medias res, as they say in prep school. But this Jupiter is sextile as the Moon and trine the Sun. In other words, it drains that opposition. And so does Mars on the ascendant, drains that opposition. So he's got 2 things that, where lots of energy, can go into very positive things. One's his personality and one's money. So that's how he reconciles. That's how he reconciles this opposition between the Moon and the Sun. So it's going to be probably either the Sun or the Moon. And as I remember, it was the Moon. So let's look at the Astrodites. So we'll pop that up, and we're going to click on Power here so we can see that. And no, it's the Sun. The Sun just edges out the Moon, okay, in power. So, and actually that makes sense. That's a dominant planet. Even though the Moon is, I'm amazed with all the charts that we do in classes, especially of famous people, especially stars who are movie stars or TV stars or whatever, how many of them have a dominant Moon or an extremely prominent Moon? Because the Moon loves, to steal the limelight.
But it's often up there in the chart.
It's often up there, but sometimes it's down below, too. It's just so powerful that it so motivates. But right, usually it's elevated. Okay, so we know the dominant planet is the Sun. So he's a Sun-type person. So that gives him a very dignified air, makes him a good leader. It's in Gemini, so he's a. Let's go talk about the next thing. So the next thing. So what we've done, we've done a preliminary analysis here. So of his chart, and what we're going to do next is. I'm going to open up a file here. I'm going to open up your second handout. The one that I actually sent you today and that has been uploaded to churchoflight.tv. And that's called Detailed Chart Analysis Part 1.
Is that a PDF?
Or
do we have to have Word? Is that a PDF?
No, it's a PDF file. Right? Both of these are PDF files. Okay. So now we're into what we were originally going to talk about today anyway. we've done a preliminary work. So we're going to, and before we start this, I'm going to say a few things that I think are important for people to know. Like, you cannot tell. When you look at a birth chart, you don't know, if somebody doesn't tell you, and you just look at the chart, you don't know if it's the birth chart of a dog or a human, right? It could be either one. Okay, so you can't tell evolutionary level. The second thing that is a confusing, obfuscating factor is genetic factors. Obviously, genetics plays a huge role in people's their personality, their deep character traits, and their health, everything like that. So that all has to be taken care of. And the other thing that I find interesting is you can't tell social status or greatness from looking at somebody's chart. You know, I mean, we're all great in our own way, okay? But that doesn't mean that we're going to go out and be a huge influence on the world, but we can certainly be a good influence on our friends and neighbors and family, and which a lot of people who don't have the opportunity to do that, who are famous people. So you can't really tell. And I put up these two people, Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma means great soul's one. So when Gandhi was born and you look at his birth chart, you didn't know that he was going to become Mahatma Gandhi. He was. You could do a good delineation of his chart without knowing that, because all those things will happen to him in his life. But you couldn't tell his mother, he is going to lead the Indian people to liberation. Right. And Abraham Lincoln, you know, if you look at his chart, I mean, golly. I was thinking about the Gettysburg Address the other day. I think there's like, it's got 250 words. Well, after listening to Obama, you know, and the State of the Union speeches of all presidents that go on, you know, they're long. They're over an hour long. The Gettysburg Address, if you haven't read that, go read it, because it's probably one of the greatest things ever written, and it's only about 250 words. It takes 3 or 4 minutes. He actually read that in 3 or 4 minutes, and that was it. So anyway, let's go on. He was a very great person, and his mom would not have been able to tell something like that from just looking at his chart. Okay, now I'm not going to go over what every chart reading should contain, but I just want to mention it because it's very important to mention that whenever you do a chart for somebody, if you go look in course 10.1, right in the front here, that in the first chapter, he goes over exactly what a birth chart reading should include. And then, just to make sure you got it, he includes a table, the outline of a complete reading, and I'll just read it to you. The person receiving the reading should be told what the birth chart represents, and they should be told, in connection with each department of life, what will be attracted if nothing special is done. They should also be informed of the best methods to follow to change any department of life into the desired direction. In other words, you always got to tell them how to make things better and what things to take advantage of. And then he goes on, I won't talk much about it, but you know, they should get their progressed aspects, which I consider extremely important. And whenever I'm teaching a class, I always want to talk about progressed aspects. But anyway, the main thing is that you tell them, when you do a chart analysis, you should tell them what things to take advantage of, what things to watch out for, and how to fix those things. And the way you fix those things is something that we're going to learn down the road here. Okay, so we figured out, now just some preliminaries here. We've already done this. We figured out the dominant. We've done the first 6 steps. Dominant planet is the sun. The next thing to note is the decans. In the first 2 chapters in course 10.1, go over the decadents. The decadents are those 10-degree sections of the zodiac that divide each sign into 3 parts. Pardon?
Comment.
Oh, David Nunez. Let's make sure. What was that? Is that a chat or a?
Do you have something on David?
David, did you have a question? I guess not. Okay. I didn't see what that one said. So. Yeah, he may have left the meeting. Okay. The decadents are really important, and we're not going to go over the decadent stuff. What you have to do is you have to go read those first 2 chapters in Natal Astrology, and there it goes over all 36 decadents, 3 per sign. And the way the decadents work is like the Leo decadent. The first decadent is Leo-Leo. The second decadent, you go around the chart counterclockwise, or in order, you go around in order of the signs. I'm sorry. So the second one, Leo, would be Leo-Sagittarius, and then the third decadent would be Leo-Aries, going forward through the signs. Okay, and there's 3 or 4 decadents that are very important, and out
Out of all of the 36, there's 3 or 4 that are really important.
in a person's chart,
Oh.
in a particular chart.
You mean like the sun, moon, and ascendant?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's it. Very good. Look, it says sun, moon, ascendant, and dominant planet. So it's very valuable to look at those, and what those decadents give you. Zane's done a tremendous job. They give you the big view of what this person is about, is going to be about in their life. And now, if I were to go look at the Aries decadent, Zane has in there an example, and it's Dr. J.M. Peebles. Now, does anybody here know who Dr. J.M. Peebles is? No. I mean, I don't even know. I'm old. Okay. But, so, Dennis Sutton has come to our rescue, and he's got a book. He's put together a book, hope everybody can see this, called A User's Guide to Decadents. And he's gone through, first of all, he did a thing which we've got up on our website where he actually, now that we have better data, he went through and corrected some of the charts that Zane used in describing the decadents, because he gives examples of people for each decadent. And then in this book, A User's Guide, Dennis has gone through and very ably created, given examples of modern day people who, you know, for example, Aries decadent, instead of Dr. J.M. Peebles, whoever that is, we have Gloria Steinem. So Gloria Steinem has her son in the first decadent of Aries. And Gloria Steinem, let's see what he says is profile pictures of special life trend defined by activity rulership, powerful love nature. Oh, well, he's talking about the whole thing. If we read what's in,
She was a pioneer.
She was a pioneer
In the women's movement.
She was a pioneer in the women's movement. That's right, and that's what he talks about down here. So what I suggest is that we're going to have this book online pretty soon. Yeah, I have to make some changes. Dennis sent me some changes, and once I get around to putting them in, then we're going to sell this book. And the way you use it, he's got several examples for each decadent. Here he's got Bob Woodward, Sandra Day O'Connor, Aretha Franklin, Diana Ross. You know, this is good. And so, but it's best to read what Zane says about the decadent and then go look at the chart. So if you go read the Aries decadent, boy, it sounds just like Gloria Steinem. You know, I mean, she's a pioneer of new ideas, and in this case, it was feminism. Okay. I just wanted you to know all about that.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real good thing. So, and that's a great way to learn about the decadents.
Well, would it be, do we have enough time to go look at the decadents of, since we're looking at Donald Trump's chart, could we look at one or two of the decadents that are significant in his life?
Let's do that. There's sort of three things, decadents, that are important. The Zane talks. Zane refers to the sun as the individuality because it is made up, it maps the most deep-seated traits, the most persistent parts of the character, and has to do, and is ego-centered. And so whatever chart, whatever decadent the sun falls in, he says that the individuality is polarized in that decadent. The same thing with the moon, because the moon is the maps the unconscious mind and reveals those things. It's constantly assimilating information from its environment. And the moon indicates how that assimilation takes place, the facility with which it takes place, and what kinds of things are more likely to impact the psyche, depending upon the house and the sign it's in. And so he calls that the moon rules the mentality. And then finally, the ascendant, which is the interface between the physical body and the unconscious mind, or soul. He refers to that as the personality. And so we want to look at these three decadents. So, Vicki, let's go look at, let's go over here and look at his chart.
There's sun in the third decadent of Gemini.
Sun in third decadent of Gemini. So that's the Gemini, Libra, Gemini, Aquarius decadent. So what that means is because that's the Aquarius decadent of Gemini, it's got that sub-influence of Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius. So not only is it the intellectual nature of Gemini, but he gets that interest in new things and new ideas and all the things that go on with Aquarius. There's that flavor of the sun in there. So what does he say about it?
Well, he says that it depicts among the constellations the Aquarius decadent of Gemini. The bear, whose restless activity and omnivorous nature is typical of mentality, in this case, moves, as does the objective mind, in the direction of events. It's huge in size to indicate immense power that may be exercised by thought.
What constellation?
This is the third decadent of Gemini. It's the Ursa Major, the huge bear, the big bear.
The large bear.
It's the scientific decadent of the sign of thought. Those born here are capable of accomplishing great things through the exercise of their minds. They tend chiefly to rely upon reason, and therefore should not only train their minds, which is readily accomplished, but should also cultivate idealism and religion. Otherwise, their efforts crystallize and become self-centered.
Okay. I think that's great advice from Mr. Trump.
Well,
and he is, an intellectual and very smart guy. But he has that quirky part of his nature that is shown by that Uranus decadent.
Right. There's a fixity of his thought.
Not to mention the fact that he's got Uranus conjunct his sun. So it's, those two things. So let's look at his moon decadent. His moon decadent at 21 degrees Sagittarius, and I'm going to use my handy-dandy pointer here. So we're looking at the moon right here. At 21 degrees Sag. So that's the third decadent because it's in each decadent is 10 degrees. So 1 through 10, 10 through 20, 20 through 30. And he's at 21, so that's the third decadent. What did you say? Leo. Right, that's the Leo decadent. Sagittarius, Sagittarius, Sagittarius. Aries, Sagittarius, Leo. So that with sub-influence of the sun. So what did you say about people born there?
It's the Sagitta, or the arrow decadent. And this is the arrow that Mithra shot against a rock and a stream of water immediately gushed forth. It symbolized the soul piercing the illusions of matter, and through this comprehension of the meaning of incarnate existence, being able to quench its thirst at the fountain of divine consciousness. But since this is in the 4th house, we don't really know how divinely his consciousness is.
Okay, now read this.
Okay. Those born under this decadent may either tread the path of pleasure or climb the royal road to spiritual supremacy. Being the kingly section of the sign of the higher mind, when the sporting proclivities relating to the 5th sign's influence are transmuted, they have not only the ability to perceive things in their proper relation, but also to synthesize their observation and impart this knowledge to others. They therefore reach their greatest usefulness as teachers and leaders of philosophical and religious thought. And when faithful to their ideals and persistent in adhering to their own conceptions, they teach the highest states of consciousness possible to embodied man.
Right, and the part that I found interesting is that Leo decadent is, he talked about the, let me read it.
This said, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're saying.
And he talked about the Leo decadent of Sagittarius. And the fact that the influence of Leo is sport. Because Jupiter and Sagittarius relate to sporting things. And Leo relates to what he said is human section of the sign of the higher mind, when the sporting proclivities relating to the 5th sign's influence, that's Leo.
Yeah.
Sporting proclivities are transmuted, blah, 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 blah. Well, and I'm just going to bring, he is into sports, and he did a lot of sports when he was a kid. So sporting activity is a big deal. That's all I was trying to say.
And didn't he do something with the gambling?
Yeah. New Jersey, I think
didn't he resurrect the casinos or something like that?
Well, I think he built a casino in New Jersey, didn't he? That was,
well, and Celebrity Apprentice is a real competitive game-like show.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he definitely inculcates that spirit into everybody who participates.
Right.
And people wants to lead them, too,
Right.
and to better thinking. And
money making.
right. Okay. Let's go read his ascendant real quick.
Okay. That's the 3rd decadent of Leo.
The 3rd decadent of Leo Sag decadent, and which Mars is in too. So that conjunction there in that decadent is important.
It's the Aries decadent. I think it's the Aries decadent of Leo. The 3rd decadent.
Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Corvus. The raven is pictured with wings outspread as if in readiness to fly aloft, but with its feet firmly gripping the back of Hydra, the water serpent. This symbolizes the emotions that are associated with creative energy, for the raven appears to be making a meal from the flesh of the serpent. In this last portion of Leo, we have the love of power and rulership combined with the quality of leadership bestowed by Aries. As a consequence, those born under this section of the sky are determined to rise in life regardless of obstacles. And when this tendency is carried to extremes, they will sacrifice their associates, their family, and even integrity itself in order to increase their power. But when their ideals are thoroughly for the welfare of humanity rather than for more personal aggrandizement, they become an immense service to society through their natural gift of being able to handle others and use them to advantage.
All right. And I think that aptly describes a lot of his character.
Right.
And I'm very familiar with that decadent. That's very you.
That's my decadent. Well, the other thing I did about him is that I think 3rd decadent Leo people are able to go in and things that seem to be failing, and they can resurrect them to a certain extent. They can go in and digest that energy, and they're able to transform it into other things, change it into.
Is that keywords to the Decadents in there?
Keywords is ambition.
The Decadent of ambition. So, and it's obviously very important, Decadent. By the way, we're talking about this now. Okay. Let's make sure nobody's got their hand raised, except for Michael.
I think it's always, yeah.
It's always raised. I guess maybe these things are kind of reversed. So, does anybody have any questions out there that they want to bring up now before we move into this last part tonight? And if not, we will just move right on. Get back in. Okay, so now we're down into this is the real beginning of, and this is like what we're going to do at this point is we're going to follow chapters 3 through 10 or something like that. And tonight it's physical appearance, temperament, disposition, and mental ability. We may not get through this whole thing, but we'll pick it up wherever we left off. And, you know, I'm thinking that an hour and a half is long enough for a class because
Yeah, I think that's all.
I don't like talking longer than that, and I end up doing all the talking, and most of it, and it's hard to stay attentive, you know. So let's talk about physical appearance. So we're going to do physical appearance, temperament, disposition, and mental ability. And we'll just kind of review these. For physical appearance, and by the way, in Course 8, Horary Astrology, Decoding, Chapter 3, Doctrine of Horary Astrology, is given these tables that Vicki put together that I put in here, which are the personal description given by signs and planets. And it's pretty interesting. So, first of all, Zane says that the planets in the first house and the sign on the ascendant is the most important factor in determining physical appearance. Now, is this important? It's not to me, but it may be to other people, and that's why we're going to go through it, because some people find this really interesting. I do find it interesting. It is interesting. I just, you know, if you were doing somebody's chart, you wouldn't write down your physical appearance is such and such. I mean, probably you would do that, right? They know what they look like because they can look in the mirror. Okay, so usually the planet closest to the cusp, or that is conjunction the ascendant within 15 degrees or so, is the dominant influence. Okay, and of course we've been talking about that. Mars is the dominant influence on his. Is going to be the dominant influence in terms of his physical appearance, but the fact that it's in Leo, I think the fact that it's the sign that it's in, the ruler of the sign, in this case, the sign on the ascendant is Leo. And what does it say about Leo down here? It says, breadth and size to stature, large head, light hair, ruddy complexion. Well, he does have a ruddy complexion. But he also has that funny hair.
It's light hair. It is light colored hair.
Huh? I'd say it's pretty Mars red.
And Mars has that tinge of red.
Yes, it is. It's red. I forgot about that. He has red hair.
Kind of a blondish red.
But you know, Leo can tend to red too.
Strawberry, yes. There you go.
But one of the most unique things about him is what he does with his hair, right?
Which is that Sun-Uranus conjunction influence on his ascendant, they think.
Right.
There is kind of an unusual...
Crazy hair.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. Right.
Right. His hair is a big deal, yeah. And it has become a big deal in terms of his reputation, I think. Or I've heard about it. I mean, I don't know Donald Trump that well, but I have heard about his hair.
Right, yeah. Okay, so, well, he didn't want to be bald, right? So he combs it over. So, basically, that's what he does, because he looks better. He likes the look of himself with hair. He likes that look. And, his personal, remember, that's Venus. I'm sorry, the Sun. The Sun is the co-ruler of his personality because Leo's on the cusp. And meaning there's no planet in the first. So the Sun, and that's what we put up here when we were filling out the blanks, we said that the Sun, that public matters have authority over personal appearance, in some way. And so he cares about that here. Well, let's go on here. And then the Sun sign, these are less important. The dominant planet may stamp its influence. The Sun, I mean, he's very dignified, so obviously. Let's see. In the book, Zhang brings up, he likes to talk about Lincoln. And the reason is because Lincoln doesn't have any planets in the first, but he's got a tall sign on the ascendant, and he's got this Saturn-Neptune conjunct that's on the ascendant, close conjunction, close to the ascendant. And so he has, first of all, he has, what does he say about Neptune here? Because I always found this fascinating.
Tendency to wait.
Tendency to wait, large dreamy eyes. Okay, so he's got this combination of
Boniness,
the Saturn, which is the dark expression. He had that dark, downcast expression, but mixed in there was this Neptune, this genius. Yeah, that's what it is, genius. I mean, he's a genius. And Neptune is the thing that often is related to genius. But
and an orator being in the sign French.
Right, he's a great speaker.
Apparently, he had a great sense of humor too, and kept being cut up. Yeah, that was brought out in that recent movie, and it was based on actual research. People around him got pissed off at how he cracked jokes in the most dire of times.
Oh, good. That's what we need.
Now, well, he talked about Napoleon Bonaparte, but when I went to look at Napoleon Bonaparte's chart, it's a different chart.
There's ambition in the 10th house.
Not only is it a different chart, but they claim that this chart is
Double A?
let's see, double is a Rotten rating is a single A on Astrology.
From whose memory?
I don't know. They said it's from memory, and they rated it an A. Probably his mother's memory. Somebody must have written this down at the time, and that's the reason it gets an A. So this is a different chart than the one Zane used. So
let's not use it.
let's not use it. Okay. I've always thought it was pretty interesting. It's a very interesting chart. It's got Jupiter and Scorpio. Let's see what it looks like. Scorpio is...
Do you even know what he looks like Marlon Brando.
Thick-set, corpulent. No, dark hair. Rudier, swarthy complexion. It sounds like him. And he's got Jupiter in there, which is ample body. You know, he was short and round, you know, kind of... Jupiter would tend to be more large, but maybe it's not the right chart. So we'll follow Vicky's advice. We won't use it. Otherwise, okay. So anyway, personal description given by signs. Here, you can read those. There's right out of course 8. Oh, shoot, I forgot I can't. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm fooling around here and don't know what I'm doing. Cursor. Okay. And then personal description given by planets. Now, temperament and disposition. Now, remember what we said about temperament. Temperament is the sort of habitual way of, we said that in the first handout, what a person typically responds to things, Are they quiet? Are they loud? Are they, And, whoops, I've gone too far. So, Zane says that the dominant planet is the most important thing in terms of temperament. And because it's the most powerful point in the chart. So in this case, we're doing Trump. It'd be his son. Let's get rid of Lincoln here. Time being. Oh, let me. I was going to show you my chart. The reason I'm going to show you this is because one thing that he says is that if there's a lot of planets in the first house or around the ascendant, then that person tends to be small and compact. Okay, so I have Jupiter in the first. Okay, in a tall sign on Libra is a tall sign. If you go read the description. Okay, so if anybody looked at that, they'd say, well, he's going to be a tall, large guy, right? Well, I'm the opposite of that. I'm a small person. Okay, now, my father, what he says is, well, there's 4 planets conjunct the ascendant there, so that would make me a small, compact person. But the other thing, of course, is genetics, right? My mother was really short, and she came from that was the short side of the family. She was only 5 feet tall, I think.
Well, your dad wasn't that tall either.
And my dad wasn't that. He was only 5'9" or so, something like that. So, so I've got short genes. But, so you have to take that into account. How do I reconcile all this? I don't know. It's tricky.
Well, that one area seems like, of all the things we're considering, the one that genetics would most strongly.
Right. So you've got to look at.
I sort of give this whole astrological take on it, just flavoring the genetic disposition, determination.
For example, Donald Trump would tend to be lighter and redder than his genetic heritage. You have to put it in the context of what his
exactly. Yeah, it has to be in the context of.
And his mane would become important.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Mane, because it's Leo. Right. Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's it exactly.
But I put less credence in this area of discussion of astrology than any other covering.
Yeah, I would agree.
Except for temperament.
Absolutely. Temperament is comes up before again.
Yeah. Now we're okay. He says the dominant planet, rising sign, and decadent planets in the first house, and give precedence to planets that are closest to the cusp or within 15 degrees of the first house. Well, obviously, Mars is the ruler of his personality. So that's Mars in Leo. That is, so if you want to read about his personality, he's quick to fight. He's energetic. He's a builder. And with the Leo influence, he is probably bombastic.
Right. And he's very authoritarian.
Yeah, and his dominant planet is the Sun. So we've got a dominant planet of the Sun, and then we've got Mars and Leo. So that pretty much.
But he probably gets things done.
He gets a lot of things done. Now this is a little tricky here. What overall character? Well, the dominant planet's the most, and what we mean by overall character, and you should go read this chapter and see what Zhang says about it. But the more dominant deep-seated traits are mapped by the sun in the birth chart. So the sign, the dominant planet and the sign, and the sun sign. In his case, it's Sun and Gemini. And Gemini people, so he's interested in ideas, in intellectual things, and he's a guy who can juggle lots of, he can keep lots of balloons in the air as a Gemini, and which he does.
Well, the interesting thing I find about him is he's into real estate, right?
Yeah.
And you'd think that would be an earth. I think of that as earthy, but he doesn't approach real estate on that level at all.
No, he doesn't, and that's very interesting because he's got, and of course the fourth house was real estate, so you got this powerful aspect here between the Moon, Sun, and Uranus. And and he's got very little Earth in his chart. What does he have? He's got one planet. He's got the MC. I mean, that's essentially no Earth. Okay, so
hasn't he had a lot of ups and downs in his real estate?
Yeah, because usually he has. He's gotten in financial difficulties a few times, but
But he comes out of it.
He comes out. Yeah, it's not a problem. But yeah, it's interesting that it is. So he, and that's part of his temperament, is the fact that he's an inspirational leader type, zealous type of person with those fire signs, and then the air signs give him that intellectual bent. So.
We're closing in on 10 minutes past.
Yeah, okay, mental ability. Well, what he says about mental ability is that Mercury is very important as the method by which thoughts are expressed, and the facility of the thinking is mapped by Mercury in the chart. But the things which are most easily assimilated into the unconscious mind are mapped by the Moon and the sign in the house that it occupies. So to the extent that the Moon and Mercury are strongly aspected, increases mental ability. It doesn't make any difference whether they're harmonious or discordant aspects. The more aspects, the better as far as mental ability. But, the key thing is that any planet in a chart or house can be turned into a real asset if it's prominent, okay? And everything in the chart has something to do with intelligence because it's a map of your solar unconscious mind. And therefore, Mercury and the Moon, while mapping certain facilities, the most likely things you think of about intelligence, remember there's different kinds of intelligence that come to the fore these days. There's emotional intelligence. A book came out about that was really fascinating. Some people may have little g. Little g is what measures what they call IQ, general intelligence. That's what they try and measure, and they call it little g. But then people are discovering, well, wait a minute. Some of those little g people are emotionally incompetent. They don't have any emotional intelligence, right? So there's different ways to look at it.
Yeah, different. But I think the Moon and Mercury certainly do have a huge influence on your facility to manage information and process it.
That's right. So if Mercury is in a sign where it is in detriment or in harmony or in fall, for example, like I had Mercury in Leo. Well, Mercury is exalted in Aquarius. That means it's in its fall in Leo. So, I don't have a speech impediment, but I have difficulty doing certain things. That's clearly mapped by because Mercury's not a very, very good sign. Now, it's my dominant planet, so I'm a Mercury person. But you can see.
Well, there's a fixity to your.
I mispronounce words that I know how to pronounce. I do really strange things.
That's good. Too.
Yeah, because its home is in Aquarius, so
Saturn?
it's a detriment in Leo.
Detriment as opposed to fall.
Right. Not as bad. It's still not a good sign to be in. So, okay, well, we're going to continue on with this kind of thing next week. I didn't mean to do that. But we're going to call it quits for tonight.
Is it next week? I think Christopher has.
No, Christopher's next week. So Christopher's going to sit down and do some tarot readings, hands-on kind of tarot stuff next week. And so 2 weeks from today, we'll be back, and we're going to get into, look at the schedule here. I didn't even use all these charts out. I've got some great charts. Great charts. If we look at the schedule, and I meant to be putting these charts up.
February 13th.
February 13th, vitality, health, and disease. And we'll probably get into business, finances, and vocational selection, too. I know everybody's waiting for love, marriage, and partnership, but we're going to go.
The day before Valentine's Day.
Yeah, that's right. We ought to flip it up there, shouldn't we? February.
Let's just keep it going in order.
Yeah, we'll go in order. Okay, so that's the schedule.